Greater Fort Worth Housing Opportunity Incorporated was formed by about 50 concerned citizens dedicated to providing adequate housing for all citizens. The group, now financed by members' contributions, plans to begin November 1st in its efforts to end discrimination in housing. At a morning press conference, 3 steering committee members talked about the formation of the organization. Accompanied by Mrs. William Watson and Charlie Ritchie, spokesman Dave Chappell described the purpose of his agency.
These services will be directed toward assisting families in finding suitable housing within their income limits in the neighborhood of their choice. Members of minority groups who feel that they are faced with discriminatory practices in their search for housing may also consult this group, as well as consulting the representatives of the Department of Housing and Urban Development. This assistance will be accomplished primarily with our group through a group of selected volunteers who will work on a one-by-one basis, facing the individuals involved and attempting to develop a system of conciliation and cooperation in our community.
In areas where the volunteer referral concept has been tried, it has succeeded, sometimes in a spectacular way. The Fort Worth group, however, had rather avoid any spectacular activity. They feel they can do a better low-key job by keeping a low profile and avoiding controversy. Jay Lewis, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.
Ernie Larmer tells it like it is, and last night was no exception. Speaking before a packed audience at a meeting of the Tarrant County Apartment Owners Association, the chamber manager decried the small number of voters responsible for passage or possible, at least partial, defeat of some bond issues in Tarrant County recently. Larmer chastised the prophets of doom in the area who are crying about the slowdown in the economy. He laid down some positive steps necessary for a successful economic future in Fort Worth.
We have to strive to continue to build our convention industry backlog and at the same time launch some strong thrust for a greater share of our state's tourism industry, because this is, well, I think it's Price Daniel who says tourist dollars are twice as good as cotton and twice as easy to pick. I think that's how he put it, but it's true. We've also got to strive within our community to maintain a delicate balance between urban development, taxation, and long-range planning.
In another section of his speech, Larmer called the chamber a catalyst, an innovator, and in some cases a coagulator if it becomes necessary to slow something down. While acknowledging a softness in the economy, the dynamic chamber leader made no apologies for Fort Worth, calling its growth strong and healthy. Art Sinclair, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.
Senatorial Republican candidates, Bush is probably looked upon as the one with the best chance. Is that right?
Yes, of the newcomers, certainly it's a very tight race, and if we wake up November 4th and discover that Bush has won, I won't be surprised.
The well-known West Texas attorney Warren Burnett and his law firm, particularly his associate Richard Clarkson, have been fighting the La Raza battle for some months now. They've taken the cause of these Mexican Americans all the way through the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals and to the Texas State Supreme Court. Their mission to try to get 16 Latin American Spanish-speaking candidates on ballots in southern Texas cities like Carrizo Springs, Cotulla, and Crystal City. The state says they have not conformed to the regulations which are required. The attorneys say they have, but they've finally given up. Burnett says because he had to go in the hospital, he was not feeling well, and Clarkson thus pulled out. So the only attorney left now to fight the battle is Jesse Gomez of San Antonio.
What they have done in effect is that by not putting us on the ballot, they have elected the Democrats that are running due to the fact that there's no Republicans running, and now that La Raza Unida is not on the ballot, nobody else is. Now, our problem right now is that we can try to win on a write-in vote. The problem with this is that a lot of our voters don't know how to write. They don't know how to read, but they know who to vote for. They know which people are running, but they cannot take a ballot and write on it the people that they want. They can't spell the names, for example. There's a lot of them. Now, what we are saying is that you keep talking about equal justice under law. You keep talking about government for the people, by the people, and so forth. And you say, well, what does this mean? Well, we think it means that the majority should rule. That this means that La Raza Unida should be on the ballot in these 3 counties.
The more pragmatic members of the La Raza Unida movement don't really think they're going to get their candidates on the ballot this time, and so they've already begun efforts to get out a voter registration drive to vote down, where possible, the candidates in the Democratic and Republican parties, which they don't like. But they do believe that next time they will meet all the qualifications, that they will get their candidates on the ballot, and they do have the massive number of voters to put them in office. So, perhaps the next time La Raza Unida will be successful. Jerry Taft, Channel 8 News on the Move in San Antonio.
Well, Rice, we've been watching their films a good bit this week and our off week, and they seem to have a real strong line. They're real huge, especially the Brownie Wheelis, their tackle. I think he's 6'5", about 260. And Phillip Wood, their quarterback, is exceptionally good runner. We expect to have a lot of trouble with him. And their young fullback, Malone, real strong blocker.
Now, Wood hasn't been doing too much passing, and it's said that if the Owls are to really succeed in conference competition, they'll have to pass. Do you think they might unload a few on the Mustangs?
Yes, sir. They had 2 weeks off. I feel like they've really worked on the passing because nowadays the team's going to have to pass a little bit to win.
Who do you think will win here in Texas?
Jess, I should ask you that question because I've not covered the Texas campaign. I can only tell you what the people in Washington are saying. The people in Washington are wrong quite often about things. They think it's a very close race. They give the edge to Benson. Now, I know that many people in Texas are saying that Bush is ahead. I don't know what your polls show or what the Texas polls show. But the Democrats have come from a position of a month and a half ago being very worried about the Texas race to going around town saying that that's one seat that the Republicans won't get to help control the Senate this year or next year.
I know that the people of Dallas, the people of Texas are proud of this fine institution. And what I intend to suggest to the students out there, and I say to you now, is that I am concerned about the tactics of some of those who criticize Birchby and others and call them all sorts of names. These same people are trying to use the students of America as whipping boys. In fact, they're trying to let the misdeeds of a few, those that want to bomb and burn on our campuses, are really they're criminals, whether they're young or old. This is a violation of our laws, and they need to be treated accordingly.
About mid-afternoon today, I had a call from a friend who suggested that I should read the afternoon paper. That State Senator Charles Wilson of Austin was here, and he had made some very damaging statements about the council, and in fact, just a little short of charging us with actual collusion with the telephone company. I read the statement, and frankly, immediately I was aghast at this. I called 6 of the council members, the only ones I could make contact with, and I indicated to them that I was going to make a statement which they concurred in.
Do you plan to ask the senator by letter to appear before the council?
I'm asking him by radio and television and the newspapers the same way he preferred the charges against us.
In loot. We searched an area in North Dallas. It's a heavily wooded area, pretty rough terrain with some creeks through it. And we had to resort from interested citizens who furnished metal detectors, and that's the way it was recovered.
Sheriff Jones, going back to October 6th on the day of the robbery, they say they were wearing ski masks, gloves. There are no fingerprints at the site. They escaped in one of the Williams' private cars. There was nothing there to point to any of these men. How did you find them?
This is the results of a combined investigation with Captain Dixon's department and ours.
At a morning press conference, County Commissioner Dick Anderson and City Councilman Jess Johnston presented proposals that could eliminate a number of high governmental jobs. Although both Councilman Johnson and Commissioner Anderson deny that anyone would be laid off if the plan were implemented, there remains the possibility of shuffling of personnel. Basically, the plan calls for the city to take over some area governmental functions and the county to assume others without an actual government merger. Councilman Johnston explained some of the combination of facilities. Commissioner Anderson says that the system would mean a tremendous savings to the area taxpayers. I asked him how much in dollars.
For a stable population.
As the population sits today, it would result in about a 12% reduction in taxes.
When the plan is presented to the City Council and the County Commissioners Court, it'll probably be assigned to committees for further study before action's taken. Despite tongue-in-cheek speculation by the press corps, there's no move to change the name of the metropolitan area to Fort Tarrant. Jay Lewis, Channel 8 News on the Move, in what is now Fort Worth.
Well, I don't think there's any question that the Atlanta game was probably the most important game we've had up to date. We had to win the Atlanta game going into the Minnesota and the Kansas City game, and we were very delighted by the way our team played, because it was really our first real good team effort for the year, and I think that this may lead on to better things in the future.
Was it possible to get an accurate judgment of performance in weather conditions like that?
Oh yes, you can get a very accurate performance. I think it's a real vote for the AstroTurf. I think it's something that proved its worth in a rainstorm such as that, because we slipped a little bit in the game, but it wasn't anywhere like it would have been if it would have rained on a regular field.
Could you talk about what Minnesota offers, what you'll need to do to beat them?
Well, Minnesota, in my opinion, is the best football team in the National Football League right now. They're a very tough, hard-nosed team. Their strength lies basically in their defense, which is a very strong, experienced football team. They play a zone type of team with a lot of multiple defenses. They play for the breaks and field position. They make the turnovers, which are the interceptions, the fumbles, and so on. That gives their offensive team, which is very, very basic, field position. And when that offensive team gets it, they make the most of it. They come out with 3 points or 7 points. So we must match them this way. We must match them in field position, and we must match them in turnovers.
We feel more or less like the man is the head of the household, the woman is the heart. We're the backbone of the society. We are not discriminated against. The American woman is the luckiest woman in the world. We have all the advantages and very, very few disadvantages. Most women that come over from a foreign country feel like they have been liberated just by coming over from a foreign country to America.
Because women live longer, for a variety of reasons, that we will see more and more women becoming heads of the household. As divorce laws become more acceptable, we will see this. As women are allowed more who are single to adopt children, we'll see more women heads of the household. I don't believe that really, if you have a husband and wife, that either one of them should assume the head of the household, but that rather a household should be a shared responsibility.
I feel, and I think most of our group feels, that most women have all the educational advantages of men if they wish to take them. If they don't wish to take them, they don't have to.
There are women who are vitally interested in intellectual pursuits, in perhaps hard physical labor, maybe who have mechanical aptitudes, who should not have to be subjected to living in a mold that society considers feminine.
Our Minister of External Affairs, in his statement in connection with the recognition statement, has made it clear that in negotiations with the Chinese, we have told them that, in fact, we will support their admission to the United Nations, and I would assume from this that we will vote in favor of their admission.
Communist China, surely you knew that nationalist China would, in fact, remove its embassy. So was this a decision of which country had I rather have diplomatic ties with?
No, I don't think so necessarily. I think it's merely that we recognize the fact that the government in Peking does in fact control the all of the mainland of China, and that if we are going to deal with the mainland of China, that is the government with which we have to deal.
the people in Dallas were arrested first.
I understand you're looking for a fourth man. What part did he play in this?
There were 4 people involved in the situation, and we do not as yet know who he is. We expect to know.
Are the 3 in custody cooperating?
I have not talked to the 2, of course, in Las Vegas. I was notified this morning about 2:30 that they had been successful in apprehending them. Of course, I have not talked to them.
Sir, today, Canadian Foreign Secretary Mitchell Sharp told the 127-nation General Assembly, quote, "Mankind sees little cause for comfort in the UN today as it looks upon a strife-torn world." Well, isn't it a fact that you're recognizing the very country responsible a great deal for this strife-torn world we live in?
I haven't seen the minister's statement on this subject. Our attitude is that you don't necessarily agree with the policies or the philosophies of all the governments which you recognize.
Well, we've got a brand new computer up there, IBM Faster. It's supposed to be the fastest thing on earth. I don't know why in the world that we couldn't do the county's computer work there to preclude their having to buy a computer or lease a computer.
What can the county do that the city is currently doing?
Tax collection, maybe road maintenance.
Well, we envision, just from our preliminary estimates, that we have a maximum of $8 million a year in just 4 or 5 areas, which would be in purchasing and tax collection, road maintenance, and other cooperative efforts, for example, on computer services.
Just because you have an unlisted phone number doesn't mean that you won't get unsolicited calls asking for the lady of the house and trying to sell you any number of products. Such calls greatly irritated one viewer who wrote to Contact 8 and asked how this could be and how it could be stopped. Bob Hutchinson of Southwestern Bell says this is done by systematic dialing, either by hand or by use of a programmed dialing assistance machine. Some phone sales companies simply pick an exchange and then dial a series of combination of numbers, one after the other. Hutchinson says that although many people consider this unethical, it's not illegal. The phone company does, when it has a number of complaints about a specific company, send representatives to the phone sales company and tell them about proper business procedure. But as to stopping this practice, the phone company says that the only real way is for individuals not to buy from phone sales companies. And the phone company reminds you that, after all, it's your phone. So, just hang up. And that's Contact 8. This is Teal Salon. Okay.
On the pollution problem, the first thing I'm going to do is get politics out of it. And we have done it in depth. I have worked with people on this. Some of the things I want to do is we have 6 or 7 different agencies now working in the pollution area, some at cross purposes. I want to have one pollution agency to look overall, set the policy in the area of pollution. Then I want in the area of local pollution that a community can set more stringent standards than are set at state level. I've talked about on the oil spill along our beaches that we have a $500,000 tax on a barrel of oil to set up funds so we can do something about it. We had some of those problems last spring. There are no funds available. And this would be a fund of $1 million. We're not talking about a whole lot of money, but it would be sufficient to get the job done. Then in the area of water pollution, we've got to work with our municipalities. You see, the municipalities putting raw sewage into these streams. We just can't do these things anymore, and we have to work on a partnership basis with the local community, the state, federal, and we can get this job done.
The Fort Worth School District plans to add 27 more schools to the National School Lunch Program if the proposal is passed by the school board this evening. About 4,000 children in the district are already on the lunch program at 35 Fort Worth schools. The director of cafeterias for Fort Worth schools, Wade Benoski, said he expects the lunch program to almost double during the winter months.
We serve approximately 65,000 per day, and 4,000 of these are free lunches.
And how many more would be added under the new proposal?
Under the new proposal, we probably won't serve any more lunches, but we'll be able to serve more free lunches. And we believe by January 1 that our free lunch total will be approximately 7,000 per day. And the reason we're proposing that these go on the federal lunch or National School Lunch Program is in order to finance the additional free lunches.
The 27 additional schools added to the National Lunch Program will just about double the current schools served in Fort Worth. Hopefully, according to Benoski, the additional schools will be served with Class A meals beginning November 1st, pending action of the school board this evening and later federal approval. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.